Hi guys, welcome to the Fluffenbusters. My name's Adam and welcome to a special extra recording to our discussion regarding the 1980s classic Conan the Barbarian, starring Arnie. A big thanks to those who've been listening in. Dee and I never really wanted this to be just a reaction channel. I mean, you have hundreds of those on YouTube as it is. Instead, we wanted these to be a conversation about a film one of us or both of us are huge fans of. Have a chat, see where it leads. This recording is a great example of that, and if you like that sort of stuff, you're in for a treat. However, I do want to make future shows a little bit more visually interesting on YouTube, so you should see some changes to profile pictures and format and the visual layout as time goes on. I'm also looking at better ways to add more movie stills, and we even have a film timecode up this time around for those who want to follow along. As for audio, you might hear elements of the movie in the background. It's just enough to be noticeable if you're not watching anything else, but it's quiet enough to please the YouTube rules. That said, I'm still learning OBS to make our streams a little bit better, and I realized this time around that I had some audio issues, which means the track isn't as clean as I'd like it. It means that sometimes Dee and I do talk over each other, and there are more ums and ahs than you'd normally get from us. Hopefully that will change in the future. Another consequence of this tech focus actually led to the main reason for this introduction. I realized during the edit that we ended up starting recording without a clear jump on point for you lot at home. So, once I'm done here, I'll give you a countdown. The moment that we'll start from is the black screen directly after the Fox logo. So, the very, very start of the film. So, I'll just get through the rest of this and then we'll jump into that, I promise. And just before I do that, I want to tell you a little bit about the next show after this, the show that I'm just starting to work on at the moment. That show will be a little bit more traditional, maybe just audio and a couple of stills, because Dee recorded one with our very own beloved Adam Nichol, and that one is about the film Event Horizon. So yeah, good luck to me getting a movie's worth of bloodless stills for that one. It'll be a bit of a challenge. Anyway, let's get back to Conan, because this is a really interesting film for all sorts of reasons. Now, are you all set up? Remember, it's the black screen directly after the Fox logo. You all good? Okay, and here we go in 3, 2, 1, go. And we're off. And while Dino's name pops up on the screen, I just want to thank you for listening to this intro. Sorry for the delay. I really hope you enjoy the stream. I'm now going to hand you back to my past self and the lovely Mr. Big D as we tackle the classic Conan the Barbarian.
Welcome once again, folks, to a bit of Fluffenbusters. As ever, I am Mr. D, joined by the eternally eloquent Mr. Adam White. How you doing, dude?
Hello, how are you? No, I'm very, very good, thank you, and quite excited to be here for something that's a little bit different.
Yeah, we've gone back to the 80s and what I think was the start of the sword and sorcery boom with, well, Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah,
the classic.
What was it about this film that prompted you to suggest it?
Well, I think because it's easy to forget that Conan is a very foundational element in the fantasy genre in his own right.
Mm-hmm.
Before the film itself, the character, when Robert E. Howard created him back in the 30s, he was a bit of a lightning bolt, and he's been an enduring presence ever since in fiction. And he forms an interesting counterpoint to the more Tolkien-esque fantasy that informs quite a lot of what we tend to think of as Warhammer.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of Conan in Warhammer as well. And especially this film, because there's something I need to make clear. I adore this film. I've owned it multiple formats. I'm currently watching the version on iTunes. Okay. So I bought it on there. I've owned the DVD, the Blu-ray. I've got a VHS somewhere. for all of the fact that it is a highly entertaining movie with a lot to its credit, of the 3 Conan films we have, it's actually probably it's probably the worst one for how its depiction of Conan. Because Arnold's character, if you've read the Conan fiction, whether that's in comic or Howard's books or any of the novels people have written afterwards, this version of Conan bears no resemblance to any of them whatsoever, especially in his origins. It's actually very funny in that regard. And they actually did the same thing in the 2011 Conan with Jason Momoa.
Isn't 2011 though? Isn't it a little bit closer? It's almost.
It's a little bit. The tone of Conan as a character is more in keeping. It's more the fact that they felt the need to introduce the element of. Oh, they do the same thing here as they did in that, as they did in the 11 one. They decided to introduce Conan's childhood and give him a tragic backstory, which book Conan doesn't have.
Yeah.
The whole point is that Sumerians are this fierce barbarian people who scoff at their god, and he just decides to travel. In fact, his origin is actually quite. He returns to Sumeria a few times in the books, or we get flashbacks to his time when he was younger. But there's nothing to suggest that he was fleeing or out for revenge or anything. He chose to leave to explore the world and seek adventure and glory.
He wasn't a tortured soul. He was a wandering spirit. Okay.
Because one of the joys of Conan is that he arrives in a situation, and no matter what it is, he's the perennial outsider.
Yeah.
And he almost always looks down on everyone else, whether they be a city dweller, a warlord, a priest king. Doesn't matter. He will find a way to be disparaging to anyone who acts in a way he considers, well, it's not that he has his own moral code, because the whole point of Conan is he literally does everything. He's a thief, a pirate, a general, a mercenary, and finally a king.
Yeah.
He covers the whole gamut purely almost through sheer force of will. But it's interesting to think of that, because like I say, I do really enjoy this film, and I think it's a very important one for how it relates to fantasy, because things like Hero Quest, the barbarian character in that, is clearly a Conan influence.
Yeah.
You see it in any model maker, sculptor will at some point sculpt a barbarian.
Yep.
Odds on, it will look like Conan the Barbarian. Specifically, it will look like either Arnold Schwarzenegger or a John Buscema piece of artwork of Conan.
Okay.
It's almost guaranteed.
Going back a little bit. So, when was Conan written? Because I think for people who don't know this, and because a lot of people as well will be looking at this and going, well, why is this guy so important? It's very much like the John Carpenter of Mars, in that so many people have borrowed from it, so many people have taken wholesale from it. There's so much Willow in this film, it's ridiculous. But there's so many other things that they're looking at it now and they're going, oh, it's just generic.
Yeah.
He says, by the way, as a former Mr. Olympia, is currently dressed as a scout. But anyway, so what's the big deal about Conan?
Well, Conan debuted in 1932. He was written by Robert E. Howard, one of the more famous pulp authors of the period. Died at 30. He only wrote Conan for 4 years.
Good grief.
But he was a prolific pulp fiction writer.
Yeah.
And Conan's his most famous character, but he wrote several others. Cole the Conqueror, who it forms part of the Conan mythos. Later on, there are characters like Solomon Kane was one of his. And I've come to learn recently of a lot more characters he wrote due to some of the comics publishers and the writers they've got involved who are very keen Howard bibliophiles.
Yep.
So they're very keen to make people aware of more of his work beyond just Conan. But yeah, 21 stories written before Howard's death. And there have been plenty more written by other people over the years. But it's those core 21. And they weren't written in... The way they were published was not actually in a chronological order.
Okay.
So the first story is actually one of the last, when Conan's a king.
Right.
So the stories fit throughout his lifetime, but there are some crackers in there. And Marvel Comics has the rights to him in the 70s, which was part of what inspired this film, because it brought the character to a new audience in a new medium.
Okay.
A much more visual one, established a very distinct look for him. That series also introduced Red Sonja, who
Obviously
was never in the original Howard works, but she's gone on to become quite a distinct pop character in her own rights, with some very good work by people over the years.
So you mentioned so I'm going to just jump in here. So the original stories, because obviously I've read a little bit about this, but obviously I'm quite new to this world. But one of the reasons that they are so impressive is because sword and sorcery beyond folk tales was not a thing really in the mainstream before the Conan stories came out. It was like, or at least it was like a pivotal first big public awareness of the sword and sorcery genre.
I would say that's a fair thing to say. I mean, this was roughly around the same time you were getting the works of and my name's creator of Tarzan and John Carter.
Burroughs, William Edgar
Rice Burroughs.
Oh,
they were more or less writing around the same sort of period. I think Burroughs was a little earlier, and his stuff was more not as historical. It was more set in the time he was writing, so much more contemporary, but featuring fantastical elements. But yeah, Howard did kind of, but he didn't just write this sort of fantasy. He did write other characters. So he had some medieval characters, some more modern pulp mystery man type characters were a thing for him as well. Which is kind of impressive for such a short period he wrote in. And because it was all pulp magazines as well, it's easy to forget that for the longest time, what we now think of as science fiction and fantasy didn't really get published in book form.
Yeah.
It was published in pulp magazines. Literally pennies a word in easily disposable anthologies, much like I think in modern manga anthologies, but especially the Japanese get through. That's actually pretty much what they were, that sort of anthology format. And there aren't many of those. I think there's a couple of those left, but not many. There's a few online that have started back up, but overall, it's a method of publishing that's dropped as well as ease of accessing materials become easier.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
I mean, I think for instance, the sci-fi rush of the late 70s into the 80s did a lot to take elements of at least sci-fi out of those books, because the likes of like William Gibson were publishing stuff. The early cyberpunk stuff was in those sort of things. So I'd imagine as well the rush to and sword and sorcery kind of fed off of that anyway, especially because Star Wars was essentially a bit of a fusion of the two. And so absolutely. I know it did a lot to pull this stuff into the wider audience. As typical folks as well, we're not really talking about the film as we're watching it, although it is the basis for what we're talking about. But I do want to say that that one of the smallest parts in the film is the mother, who has a pivotal scene. I don't think she ever did anything afterwards, and yet she's incredible in her brief little moment.
Yeah.
And also, this is, I mean, a lot of people will think of this as quite a crude film. It's not. It's actually,
No, not at all.
because of the time it was made as well, even the most base of films, which this is not, made by producers and directors who were of an old school mentality that was very macho, very, very, very alpha male, but not, and I want to be very clear on this, I don't think I've ever heard anything bad against the people that made this film. So there was an element of men being men, but not to the detriment of other elements. If you see what I mean reading between the lines here. So Milius, for instance, was the sort of director that would happily stand up to Arnie. And that's why he got what he got from him. He's also why I think he kicked Oliver Stone off the script. You know, it's like things like they had a very strong vision. So there's a lot of art in this. Some of it's practical,
and I will say,
but yeah.
And one thing I will say, if you want a great experience, find a version of the Conan DVD that has the commentary between John Milius and Arnold Schwarzenegger. My God, those two can talk. And it's brilliant.
I bet as well. It's one of those where they've just got a line of cigars, and they're just absolutely, they're playing into it.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you gotta be a man with these stunts, and I ain't taking no lip from anyone. You know, that's like how they say good morning. Obviously, Arnie in his slightly more distinct voice.
Yeah, but this wasn't, because this was Arnie's first big speaking role as well.
So did he do anything? Because I know there was Hercules in New York before this.
I think he had some TV stuff before this.
Okay.
But otherwise, this is pretty much what leads to Terminator. Without this, there is no Terminator.
Okay.
It's genuinely that simple. Because this is what made people aware of him in a broader sense. He was famous for Mr. Universe, but before this, he had only really done Hercules in New York, where he'd been dubbed.
Yeah, he was famous as a famous bodybuilder, but obviously that's a different level of fame to Hollywood fame. It's like C-Bum at the moment. Like, people know in bodybuilding, they know who C-Bum is, but in general public wouldn't have a clue.
But Arnie always kind of knew where he wanted to go. So, and he puts the work in. People forget he worked his ass off for all this. And I mean, there's behind the scenes stuff. You'll see pictures online about this film. We see stuff like him and Samuel Bergman and I have to say I've forgotten his name again. The actor who plays the main sidekick in this. They took their training very seriously. They had a legit Japanese swordmaster training them.
Oh, he pops up in this. I think he gets a cameo. So,
and I mean, I've tried to use a sword kind of the same sort of dimensions of the ones Arnold's using this, and
it's not easy, is it?
No, I mean, I've used swords of a variety of sizes over the years and qualities. Some are easier to use than others, but it's not easy still, especially ones those chunky. So, and he makes it look effortless. That's the thing.
Yeah, well, he does, and I think one of the biggest points of praise that I can give is that his skill and his dedication to the posture, something you'd already learned. I mean, if you've watched Pumping Iron, you know this is a guy who did ballet. Although he played it up shamelessly, he did do elements of ballet to help with his posing and his poise on stage, which instantly made him far more impressive than other people. And so when it came to this, you know, there are scenes where he's just holding the sword, and he knows the difference. He knows the impact he has. He knows how to do it so that it will sell the appearance to people, and it's good. I really appreciate the small details in this. I like. So this film was designed by Ron Cobb, who is one of the greatest like designers when it comes to film and film props and film sets and just general film goodness. And I love the fact that they came up with this device, and it's just a random wheel in the desert, but they've given it some purpose. And it's a masterful bit of storytelling, because we're into this film, we're a good chunk into this film, and people watching this will be like, hang on a second, Arnie hasn't spoken yet. I mean, he's only just appeared in a really nice reveal, showing development, showing where he comes from. But he's not spoken yet. And it's not that they're desperately trying to keep him mute. It's not like it's a joke. It's not like he's Snake Eyes from G.I. Joe. It's that there is no need for him to speak at the moment. And there is, that all the story is being told by other people. Funnily enough, I was thinking about this when I was watching it in prep for this, and it reminded me of Max from Mad Max, because in Mad Max the story happens to Max. Max is just living through, so he's reacting to what's going on around him. So if he doesn't need to say something, or if he doesn't need something, he's not going to talk, and the film isn't pushing him to do that. And I love the way that Conan, everything at the moment is happening to Conan. He's kind of powerless, but you see him grow and build. It's wonderful. There are, I know there's going to be a lot to talk about the fighting later on, other characters, but you mentioned as well about his sidekick, who I think in real life was a surfer, just a mate of John Milius's. John Milius, who did Big Wednesday, which, again, a surfer movie, which has become a cult, long since become a cult, and is an art film, and took people who famously were actors who had huge issues off screen and made them into gods on screen. I managed to sort of channel that rebellious energy into something quite beautiful. And I like how even the sidekicks in this have gone on to other things. If you ever play Baldur's Gate 2, and you pick the character, almost the default character of Yoshimo, who's the thief, it is the sidekick from this film. Yeah. Like, right down to the accent, the presentation, everything. And you think, yeah, it's Conan. It's crazy. Just the amount of impact that this film has had. And because of this crazy situation that we have with modern media, and how quickly stuff like this, now that there's not an HMV to always look through and discover it again, stuff like this is mostly forgotten. And most younger kids, and I hate to be the old man here, but most kids will see this and just think cheesy rip-off Barbarian movie, when in fact this was the one that started it all.
Yeah, and honestly, it looks better than anything that came after it until. Well, there's been some in like the 2000s that have had the same sort of feel, but this came first, and all the others came after it, kind of ran on its coattails.
Would that be, do you think, just because they were struggling to innovate, or is it because the amount of like knockoffs that came out really, really quickly almost like soured the brand, so to speak?
I think there's a bit of that. I mean, the 80s was a weird time, because that was kind of like where, because VHS especially had become a big thing in the 80s, and there's that demand for material, you were just getting this deluge of material, of stuff being put out, and people trying to chase trends and see what was there. And Conan did find an audience. It wasn't a massive hit, but it was respectable. It got a sequel, technically a second sequel in Red Sonja.
Yep.
But and the character persisted. I mean, there's still an online MMO going now after 10 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
It's been going. There was one cartoon, because we don't talk about the follow-up to it. There was the live-action TV show in the late 90s, very much in the Xena trend, which starred Ralph Mueller, who was a in my opinion, a very underrated actor in his own right. In that, when you talk about bodybuilders who move into acting, sometimes it can be very easy to dismiss them, much like wrestlers. But Rolf, probably most famous, he was in Gladiator. He was the big German in the arena. And honestly, most people who watched that film, they remember Rolf.
Yeah.
He made an impact because he wasn't just the blind brute. He gave his character with what he had, he made him a character, a person.
Yeah.
Which is why I was glad to see him get the chance to play Conan, even if briefly in a slightly diluted format. But yeah, I think it was just a trend for. The thing is, these sort of films were kind of an evolution of what we call the old sword and sandals movies of the 50s through to the 70s, which were generally shot in Spain or Italy and tended to get to major markets after being dubbed. And this Conan kind of sparked people's interest and reminded people, oh yeah, you can do this, because I think it was all shot on location in Spain.
Not all. In fact, no.
Oh.
In fact, they started off in Yugoslavia. What was Yugoslavia? So for kids who don't know, Yugoslavia was a tourist destination of the early 80s. There was even a company called Yugo Tours that specialized in Yugoslavian holidays. And then stuff got a little political, and that was the end of Yugoslavia, and things got really bad. And the final scene as well was shot at Shepperton, of all places.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah.
Literally, the home of Star Wars had one little scene of Arnie, which we'll talk about later. And by the way, when we talk about these terrible movies, I do want to give a shout out. And this is to a channel that has no connection with us whatsoever, but I think job well done. I love their video. So the channel's called The Bad Movie Bible, and the video is called Borrowing Blockbusters, Barbarian Movies, and Conan Exploitation. It goes through every wonderful ripoff. And some of them are absolutely horrific. I mean, really, really bad. But there was an explosion of them.
One thing I should point out, as much as I am kind of dissing a lot of these movies that came after Conan, a lot of them are actually still entertaining in their own right.
Yeah.
Because Conan, if you think about it, so by a lot of standards, can be viewed as not exactly a great movie, but it's an entertaining movie.
Yeah.
And a lot of the fantasy films that came after this, like the Barbarian Brothers, Beastmaster, they all have things to recommend about them. You wouldn't perhaps watch them ad nauseum, but you'd have a good time watching them once in a while.
It's like they've got a good idea, or they've got a good effect, or they've got a good character. But the problem is, they've only got one of those things.
Yeah.
Or they might have a great scene or concept, but nothing is then produced to the right to keep you invested in the movie. Whereas this, a lot of it, I mean, even like the lighting here is beautiful. The camera work is really well done. Arnie is Arnie is very, very good in a lot of the few speaking scenes he has. The one thing I will say, and you've actually reminded me of this whilst we're seeing it on screen at the moment, is because he's not saying anything. In some of his early moments, like for instance, falling into the cave, it's just lots of dubbing of him going, and it's almost where this sort of the Arnie growl and moan, I think, almost began to take root as something that people associated with him more than other people.
Yeah. But that's fair, honestly.
I like, since we're about to go into, I think, a segment that highlights the sort of spiritual side of this, because Conan is a mixture of various things. You know, as I mentioned before, although when Conan was written, he was something a little bit new to the general public. Of course, history and myth and legends have been around for as long as we have.
Yeah.
And Conan borrows quite heavily from a lot of Celtic stuff. Conan is
Yep.
an Irish name,
Mm.
which people might just think, oh, that's just some made up thing. No, it's not. Then again, as well,
Yeah.
the god here is, at least there is a Irish god called Crom.
Hmm.
Now it has a slightly different, we believe, background and reasoning behind it, and it definitely evolved a bit more direct action in terms of worshipping by its worshippers. But it
Yeah.
still was something. It was just
Yeah.
another religion that was kind of wiped out by the Christians.
Yeah. And Howard did put a bit of thought into what he created here, what he called the Hyborian Age. Someone, I saw it a few days ago, I posted it in our Fluffenhammer Discord, took the map of the Hyborian Age and superimposed it over a map of Europe and North Africa and Mediterranean and Arabia, and it fits.
Yeah.
A lot of Cimmeria is under the North Sea, as it would be, given the rising sea level that occurred. But a chunk of it is basically the British Isles. The Hyborian Age specifically is set after the fall of Atlantis. And Howard crafted his whole own mythology for the Atlanteans and what happened to those people. One of the major nations that Conan runs up against are the Picts, who are depicted in a vastly different way here to how they are known in the Roman era. So he tried to kind of tie a lot of things into the real world. And it works nicely. I dig it a lot. It's fun. And
You've
Atlantean
given him
sword is nice
as well. They've given him like a genuine victory. He's not actually had a proper battle, in a sense, with any of these dogs in this case, or wolves. But we're a chunk into the film. You actually have probably one of the most grounded, well set up heroes that we've ever seen in fantasy. And yet there's been the minimum of him actually talking. Apart from a few lines. Of course, the lines are so famous because he says so few of them. But he's, up until now as well, it looks like he's quite sharp. He's not as sharp as Conan in the books. And that was something as well I wanted to ask you about. Because Conan in the books, as our movie Conan, is about to make one of the dumbest mistakes that is possible. I almost thought there'd be like a Warner Brothers kind of Looney Tunes type gag about, yes, I'm sure this looks perfectly safe. No problems here with the woman who's happily asking you to enter her abode. But he is a lot sharper, isn't he? He's more of a tactician.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this version of Conan, because he's basically spent almost his entire life as a slave up to this point, or a gladiator, he's not that worldly. We saw him being given material to read.
Yeah.
But this is his first real time on his own as an adult. So he's still... He lacks the... I've said before, Conan in the books always seems to come into things and have this barbarian disdain for civilization or people who try at things or he has an issue with people who try too hard.
Okay.
He generally is quite forgiving of people who are doing their best, but it's when people overreach and they overreach out of arrogance that he tends to take issue with. But he's always been quite canny in the books. And this version takes a bit of time to get there. Destroyer is probably closer to the Conan of the books than this version than Barbarian, to be fair. Although one of the funny things someone pointed out to me a while ago is that whilst all this is going on, Subotai, the character who becomes Conan's sidekick for much of the film, has to actually be outside this hut at this point. All this time, he's been outside asleep.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah. Which is kind of funny.
Well, I mean, he was being used as food, wasn't he, by this?
I think so, yeah.
Though it's weird because of the way that she then ends up disappearing off. You don't know whether she's a god or a... It's very, very weird. I have to admit, this is one of those areas where I didn't quite understand the intention of her. Maybe it's left open to interpretation. But
I think it's just to give a hint that there are things in this world.
Oh, like just that there are more mysterious elements.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I know at the time as well, Sword and Sorcery, thanks to this film a lot, the exploitative filmmakers who followed really leaned into the fact that female nudity was almost a given. And because you had the topless men running around, that it was, fine for topless women. And it actually got quite silly, some of the stuff I've seen, where it was just almost an excuse for almost soft core, which is a shame because it then took away from the fact that this is meant to be, action, adventure, but also as well a lot of like horror and thriller and other elements. And yet, at the end of the day, you started to see titles coming out, and starring Penthouse Pet, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, that kind of takes away from it all. But I'm sure, sci-fi had the same thing as well. So,
well, the thing is, especially with fantasy, it's a lot hard. Fantasy has always cost more than science fiction.
Yes.
Because sci-fi, you can cheat. You can use modern day stuff and just gussy it up. Fantasy, you can't do that, or if you do, you have to be really good at hiding it.
Yeah,
and that often doesn't go hand in hand.
You have to have a handy desert or a quarry or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, really, we didn't get any. I mean, fantasy, the ones that nailed it, this, Willow, and then Lord of the Rings. I'd kind of say the Hercules and Xena stuff because they were all shot in New Zealand as well.
Yeah.
But it's a tough one to get right, and the problem is a lot of studios, they're all about the bottom line. They wanted the biggest return for the least outlay. Yeah. I mean, Conan had a budget of 20 million, which in 1982 that wasn't a small amount of money.
No, that was hefty.
For a film. I mean, it made. I'm looking at the figures here. It says it made between 68 to 79 million.
That's
at the box office.
That's not bad. That is not bad. That
in
is
1980 terms. That's a good figure.
I believe I don't have the exact figures to hand, but I believe in terms of box office to return ratio, I believe that's about the same as Sinners this year.
Yeah, I mean, if you account for inflation, that probably tracks, yeah.
And because I think it was like 4 times the budget or something, something like that. So nice, healthy box office. But yeah, I mean, the amount of money this must have earned on home release, home video, and then the eventual DVDs and the box sets, it must have really cleaned up. Because this was always one of those things that you saw multiple versions of.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing is, for DVD, because I remember, because I was working for Borders when it first hit DVD.
Yeah.
So initially it had a fairly bare bones 1-disc release. Mm-hmm. But then they did a really nice 2-disc version, which was one of those editions that was kind of it showcased what DVD could do.
Ah, okay.
Because you had the commentary with Schwarzenegger and Milas.
Yeah.
And it was just loaded with extra features. Behind the scenes material, documentaries, anything you could want to go with it.
Oh, brilliant.
And if you can find a copy nowadays, you should be able to, because at one point you could find the 2-disc version for like $5. It was a broad release. You could find it everywhere. Find a copy. I highly recommend it, folks. If you can find a copy of Conan on DVD, 2-disc special edition, go for it. It's a cracking disc.
It's going to be one of
So,
those as well that you learn a lot about filmmaking. You learn about a lot about Hollywood, the characters, the personalities. The director is a personality in himself. The other
yeah,
people as well, some of the actors involved. I mean, our lead actress here as well, who never really. Apparently, I did some reading up on her as well. She tired very quickly of the sort of roles that she was being offered, and she just sort of stepped away. But of course, she was a fantastic villain in Red Sonja.
yeah. That's the thing. Anytime I've seen her in anything, I mean, she was. I haven't seen a picture of her today, but she's easily one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen on film.
Oh,
She's
yeah,
her,
she's not gone Hollywood. She's just she looks her age, which is not, by the way, that's not anything nasty. I always appreciate it when you see an actress that is of a certain age. I mean, my goodness, yeah. This is an old film. Arnie doesn't look young, so you wouldn't expect her to either. But it's so nice when they interview someone and they haven't Botox and they haven't plastic surgery, and you can see them, and they're just older than they were, and it's lovely. And yeah, she was brilliant, and I always thought it was such a shame that Hollywood never really took advantage. Even if, like, I mean, we probably mention it afterwards. Oh, by the way, this is Ron Cobb in his film cameo. But the fact that there were so many sword and sorcery films, that there were so many attempts as well by studios to do them. You forget there were other attempts in the 80s to keep this going, and she would have been a shoo-in for them. And yes, it would have been more of the same for her, but at least they were quality productions, where I think what she ended up getting was pretty crappy ones. So stepped away.
Yeah, which is, I mean, good for her for knowing her worth, because in her position, bear in mind, she put for work in her role as Valeria.
Oh, heavily, yeah.
She worked to make the character, to embody the character, even if it's not completely the same character as Valeria from the books. This version is magnificent, frankly.
But, we're going to ignore, by the way, Arnie punching a camel. I'm just going to say we'll just skate over that.
Am I the only one who that never gets old? Because it's just so random.
I do appreciate the was it lizard on a stick that they ate, and it always reminds me of Cut Me Own Throat Dibbler from Discworld.
Yeah, or from old Demolition Man.
Oh, of course, yes.
Whatever they're cooking. Do you see any cows?
What is it? Ratia?
Rat burger. It's a good burger.
Oh, have we? We've not done Demolition Man yet. We're now getting to the stage where I can't remember what we've watched, and I've realised that Demolition Man is a wonderfully self-indulgent addition to it.
I mean, Demolition Man is one of those films that really. I'm trying to think, because at some point we need to do both Dreads, and Demolition Man kind of sits between them, because we did RoboCop.
Yeah.
That film informs what they did with Judge Dredd in the 90s.
Yeah.
Then Demolition Man was Stallone's kind of attempt to make good on that. And then Dredd is going, no, you can make this character work on film. Here's how we're going to do it.
There's a lot. Yeah, well, we're definitely going to do those. I mean, I think we have to anyway, because now, depending on how you say it, because even though there's an official way of saying it, people will say it both ways, Arbites or Arbites. The fact is that they're popping up in so much media that even GW will have to do something about this. So,
I'm genuinely amazed that they're showing up in 2 separate video games on the same day.
Yeah. And you can tell as well, YouTubers have already started to take note. There are at least 2 or 3 people now doing videos on them. I think
Yeah,
Oculus. Go on.
Adric did their video on VR Bytes this week.
Okay.
Which as expected, was hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Bricky and DK never change.
Oculus Imperia is going to be doing his one on it soon, which is fantastic because his voice is like liquid gold.
It really is. Oculus.
He's one of those people as well. I know this is going slightly off topic, but he voiced something recently which has been an issue, I think, for many people. The sheer rise of AI generated content for GW, where people are just chucking in the wiki into a program. They're generating a David Attenborough voice, and then they're just boshing together these random videos. And of course, they're pulling all of the attention, even away from people like Luton, which I think is terribly unfair.
It really is, because I've got no problem with people trying to come into the space and put their own spin on things, but folks use AI to try and that's cheating, you know. That put the work in, you know. If you're going to do it.
I mean, I know we're saying that, and it's just 2 random heads against a random background whilst we're watching a Conan movie, and we're not even talking about what's on screen. But the way that we're doing this is its own thing, and if anything, we're not doing it for the reasons of, wow, 2 first-timers, watch Conan, excited reaction, follow us on Patreon, excited reaction. And
I could never do those because I've watched too much stuff over the years.
Well, also as well, we've done a reaction already on this channel, and I don't know about the folks at home listening, but when I watch something, especially a reveal show, and I'm interested in it, I tend to shut the hell up. Or if I'm excited, I'll just swear a lot and go, that's effing brilliant. I won't go, oh my God, and then talk to the camera for 15 minutes. So, yeah, I can understand why, you know, I understand why people do it, but hopefully people are okay with the way that we do this type of stuff, because we're trying to do stuff that maybe AI wouldn't touch. It'd have to be a seriously warped AI to try and mimic this.
I know, right? Can you imagine trying to mimic mimicking our tangents would probably break the poor thing. I feel sorry for any AI trying to duplicate us.
One of Conan's unwanted legacy is this idea that maidens would always wear these kind of very weird sort of pant-like pants or undergarments, and then inevitably get sacrificed or fall to their death. And they would always have this innocence about them, apart from the fighters that were utter badasses. So it's and yet when the filmmakers talk about this, there's, again, I have not heard about any elements of any poor treatment of the actresses. And this is something, I know people might be like, why does he keep coming back to this? Well, it's because this is Hollywood men. This is definitely a story written by men for men. Also, Robert E. Howard, you know, at the time he was writing Conan, there were very particular societal attitudes to gender and race, and unfortunately, he was not immune to that. You know, he grew up in this certain time. As they even say in the documentary, he grew up in the Jim Crow era of America. So you can sadly understand why some of his books and portrayals are a certain way. And yet, you then hear from the people involved in the film, and nobody has anything negative to say about the film, which is great because you've got clearly a lot of people working really hard. It's like the lead actress as well, who almost lost a finger at one point. Really working hard, really giving it all, and you come up with this really badass film. And even little things like, this is a very, very large special effects snake back at the time when people really didn't make many of these for films because it was just too advanced.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, it's a big rubber snake, but it actually works really well on screen. It looks good, and the funny thing, like you were saying with yes, Robert Howard was a product of his time, and Conan does quite often save damsels in distress who
Yep.
he often finds himself in bed with at some point.
Yes.
He's not exactly an enlightened man. However, the books also feature two of the earliest, well, two of the best fantasy female characters. Belit, Queen of the Black Coast, who was a hugely important character to Conan and his character's development over his stories. And Valeria,
Yeah.
who appears in a very different role in the book. She only appears in one story, if I remember rightly, and not in the same sort of role she appears here alongside as Conan's romantic foil. They're very much two warriors who are equals on almost opposing sides at various points.
Okay.
But they've both those characters have endured, and when Marvel eventually introduced Red Sonja, she's persisted as well as a... Yeah, she's the stereotype of the chainmail bikini, but a lot of very good writers have written Red Sonja and written her well.
Yeah.
Going far because it's easy to take those stereotypes and just grow beyond them. Or sorry, it'd be easy to just run with the stereotypes, but a lot of writers want to go beyond that and make it more and elevate the character as much as they can.
Wasn't a Red Sonja movie? Isn't it one of those big development hell stories?
There's been one, yeah. They finished shooting one, I think, in the last few weeks.
Oh, wow.
It's due later this year.
Who's playing her?
Hang on, because for the longest time it was in development hell with Robert Rodriguez, and in the set to direct. This one stars Matilda Lutz. Hang on, I shall ping you across a picture of the poster.
Okay. So I know the Robert Rodriguez one was...
Rose McGowan.
That's it, yeah.
Yeah, because that was when they were a couple, if I remember rightly.
Yep.
But I've just pinged you the image, the poster they've put out. But I tell you what, this is actually not a bad casting they've got for this. Matilda Lutz, Red Sonja, Wallace Day, who I quite enjoyed her. She took over from Ruby Rose as Kate Kane Batwoman briefly. She was quite good in that, to be fair.
Okay.
Robert Sheehan, who I think he's from Misfits and a few other, and the Umbrella Academy. It's very good. But yeah, I've been tentatively looking forward to this one.
But has there been any backlash by anyone?
I don't remember seeing anyone. I mean, probably the biggest change is how they've said that they wanted to get away from the male gaze. Because I think the director is MJ Bassett. I think that's a woman.
Okay.
So it's trying to be a much more female-led performance role.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair, some of Red Sonja's best stuff is by Gail Simone, one of the best writers full stop in comics. So yeah, that's not a bad idea.
The challenge they're going to have is if they can reduce the male gaze, but also acknowledge that, just like with the hero, just like with Conan, the fact is a lot of the excitement around Conan was from women as well. You know, they sold the male body beautiful. And so Red Sonja, you would kind of expect also it being that genre that a lot of men obviously support. It's like superhero films when the character is a super heroine. And after when they do all the reports about why these films bomb, they also break down who goes and sees these films. Like Captain Marvels, for instance, the Marvels in general. The vast majority of the audience for that were men. So it's like, how do you kind of keep that audience, don't alienate them, but at the same time, as you say, kind of subvert that male gaze a bit. It's a really delicate balancing act.
Yeah.
If they can get it right, good for them.
For certain things, for Marvels, I thoroughly enjoyed the Marvels. And I don't actually think it's lack of performance they expect of box office is to do with the quality of the film or the audience. It came out in the wake of a pandemic. It was still so close to it.
Oh, it was. There was a lot of stuff going on. Also, as well, there's a lot of other things going on with the likes of the Marvels,
there's a whole double
and
standard
Star Wars.
There's a whole double standard as well with films.
Yeah.
Starring female actors or female-led movies tend to be judged much more harshly than male-led ones. For example, what was it? The Marvels was criticised for how much it made, but it vastly outperformed Joker 2, which was a spectacular bomb commercially, because they spent like over 200 million on that movie. But no one talks about it in the same sort of terms.
Oh,
even though Marvels was,
I don't know. I think if you, it depends on channels. This is the problem as well. And the people watching this on YouTube will probably be aware of this. If you watch, if you watch something that, you click on something by mistake and say it's an NBA video. The next thing you know, you jump in the algorithm and the next 15 videos that you're shown will be NBA videos, basketball. So if you watch anything criticizing the Marvels for certain aspects, let's just say, then you're going to get a lot more of that media kind of pumped into your direction. Yes. If you watch stuff having a go at Joker, you'll tend to get a lot of Joker stuff. So I know that Joker got a good old thrashing from a lot of people. But I think because Joker was a far more, like, the general audience hated it, general public hated it, it was kind of panned as a bad film. Whereas some of the Marvel stuff, some of the Star Wars stuff, it's panned because it alienated a certain audience. And that's when you get the kind of the more niche elements, but they react a lot stronger. And you get this kind of kickback thing. I do want to very quickly, people will be shocked by the amount of times I'm referencing the screen in one of these videos, but Max von Sydow.
I know, right? I wanted to point out, because this is a great brawl for him. Because at this point in his career, he was still most famous for the seventh seal.
Yep, that's it. Like really po-faced stuff, really serious stuff, really compact, controlled roles. This was fun. It's kind of a little bit of King Lear, a little bit of Weiss Sage. You've obviously seen the making of where he expands on what he was also meant to be shown doing in the movie. But I actually like this kind of fleeting, because it's just a cameo basically.
Oh yeah,
but it gives you a glimpse really nice.
It's a glimpse of where Conan could end up.
Yeah,
he's very much an example of the end line of that hero who becomes the king. It's not always all it cracked up to be, especially in this age. So, but I don't think really any other actor than Max could have done it, because even at this point, when he was starting to show his age, he was still a very potent presence physically.
Yep.
Even clad in all those furs. And hell, he played this sort of role pretty much for the rest of his life, effectively, in various ways. Did it in Judge Dredd, did it in Force Awakens, and a huge variety of other roles over 40 years between this and his death. But he was so good at it.
Yeah. He was. He just tapped into anything that you saw him in. It's like he gave the character a powerful, potent history. So you knew his character was based in that world. And I actually prefer the fact, because I only, again, whilst researching for this, I found out that his character, the king, they filmed a death scene for him, and it, because of effects and other stuff not working, they kind of gave up on it. And it's not in the movie. And I actually like the fact that it's not in the movie, because I like the fact there's another positive character in the movie. And that it is, as you say as well, it's a potential place, like, if Conan does what he's meant to do, there's a potential place where he can go and probably be king.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's really nice. Really nice lighting here. I've just got to say, this is stuff that you don't see in modern films. Really nice, low key, low lighting. Yeah, it's fake candlelight. Obviously, the candle's not lighting the scene, but they do such a good job. Sorry, mate, you were going to say something.
No, I was just going to say, it's one of the things that they kind of pay off in Destroyer, where at the end he's given that chance and he says no.
Yeah.
And that's actually a really important thing about the character, that Conan does refuse crowns not a small number of times before when he finally becomes a king in his own right, he's almost doing it out of duty. Because the king he's been serving is a nut job. He's gone completely cuckoo. So he kind of has to take the throne. But it's. I'm glad that Von Sydow's character doesn't die either, because that almost feels like it would have been too easy. Yeah. To have had him go.
It's a shame as well he didn't. Like, if there had been like a third film and a fourth film, and this series had carried on, I'd imagine he'd have come back. It would have been sweet. Just another side here. So one of the films I started to watch, I've not gotten all the way through it, and you'll find out why shortly, but I started to watch this week, was the Jason Statham film, A Working Man. Have you seen it?
I haven't yet.
Okay.
There's a chunk of Stave's latest stuff I've not gone around to watching yet.
Well, this was, I believe, part written by Sylvester Stallone. And you can tell. Because at one point, he pulls up, and I think a dog comes to meet him, and then there's a guy walking towards him with glass. No, he's sat with someone wearing glasses, and he goes, "So, how you doing?" And the guy with glasses takes off his glasses to reveal that he's blind, and goes, "Well, since I was blinded in my service duty, I find it really tough, but, I'm getting by." And Stath goes, "Well, you always were, really bad, mean person, really good with guns, always a guy I could really rely on." And he's like, "Yeah, well, when I was shot and blinded in service and duty of this great American state, I really appreciated a mate like you." And it's like, look, can we just have some subtlety, some, where you don't spell it out explicitly for the audience? And I'm kind of over-egging it, but also, please, folks, watch the beginning of A Working Man. It's so unsubtle, it's ridiculous. But it's also, as well, more commonly, the norm for a lot of movies today. A lot of them are so, because the writers and the studio is so, they have no trust in you, basically. They worry that the studio won't get the fact that somebody is a hero, or somebody is a villain, or somebody has a history in the army. And we're looking at this Conan film, and there's been so little said, and yet so much implied, and there's so much story being told just through moments and composition, and some really beautiful really, really beautiful sets,
Yeah.
including the one we're looking at the moment with the stones, which is just cracking. And like they moved around and hauled around tons of sand just to get this or some of this, and it's just beautiful. And yet they don't spell it out for you. They're not desperately scared that you will that you might miss a point or you won't get everything. It's some beautiful stuff here. It really did drive it home when I was watching a so-called sophisticated modern film, and yet it paled in comparison to the story that's told in this film.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you'd struggle to get something like Conan made today.
Yeah.
Hell, you'd have struggled to get it made any time in the last 20 years, to be honest. Because the system... Alright, that's probably a studio like, I don't know, A24 might get something like Conan made nowadays. But I don't think there's a director or an actor who would have the same sort of force of personality between them to get it made.
There are very few. This is very, very weird, but it would almost need to be an art director. Now, the art director would fail miserably on the action scenes. Have you ever seen Ghost Dog?
You know what?
It's a long time ago.
It's one that I've always meant to get around to watching because some of my friends, they never stop raving about it. I just never got around to it. I keep meaning to.
It's a good one. One of my friends hates it. It's the film he hates the most, and he never stops taking advantage of the fact when he speaks to me to remind me that I have a terrible taste in movies. But Ghost Dog is lots of silence, lots of pause, and then a few moments of action. And it tells the story, and it doesn't need to be action all the way. In fact, the banality of real life means that you believe the film's world, and then when the action occurs, it is that much more potent because it has the impact of action. If you encountered a fight or violence, you don't suddenly turn into an actor and handle it with ease. You get scared, you get shocked. And I like the way that some of this kind of deals with it as well. Like Conan is doing a lot of just moving around and trying to reach his goals. When he draws the sword, he means business. But for the rest of it, he's just trying to get closer to his goal.
And you know what? I always tend to forget this chunk of the film when he actually visits Thulsa Doom's encampment.
And screws up completely.
Yeah. The bit where he actually meets Doom face to face, yeah, but this bit always kind of I tend to just forget it. But it's really good for getting across that this is a really weird cult that's going on. It's dangerous. This is basically an army in the makings.
So would you say this is the very top of the slide that heads towards Slanesh?
Ooh.
It starts off innocent enough and then gets a lot weird by the end.
I wanted to mention how Conan, well, all of Howard's stuff really does have a bit of a Cthulhu link running through it because, bizarrely, Robert E. Howard, the writer of pulp fantasy and heroic fiction, who was a proponent of bodybuilding, was good friends, although I don't believe they ever met in person, with Lovecraft.
It's crazy, isn't it?
And there is stuff in the Conan mythology of these dark entities sending out their servants into the world that generally tend to run up against Conan from time to time. It's kind of a fun, and not even just Conan, but various members of Howard's heroes. It's a fun one, and it does, like you say, things like this would form an army not unlike, say, the head of Knights of Slanesh, potentially.
It's very weird that they add in Conan almost using his body to trap someone. It's funny, you always hear it like in other films of the time, the good guy would try and trick the bad guy into walking around the corner. They'd say, "Psst, come over here," or something. And then there'd be, you wouldn't hear anything. It's like tricking the stormtroopers onto the Falcon. You hear a bang, and then suddenly the heroes step out in the bad guy's costume. Here they actually have a scene where Conan almost plays with his food almost.
I mean, basically, he seduces that prince.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful scene for the way it's done.
And Arnie looks like the worst tourist imaginable. He honestly, he looks as though he's just come out of a completely different film.
I mean, there's only like 4 other guys in the entire film anywhere near his mass.
Yes,
which is very funny in its own right.
And
3 of them
the fact they had to go to I think it was the NBA. It was either NBA or basketball to get one of them that was taller than Arnie. So that he could feel a bit. I think it's our main henchman, because obviously our backup henchman is very well known.
Well, you got the 2 main henchmen were both workout partners for Arnie, if I remember rightly. These 2 chaps. And Destroyer, they had, I think, Dwight Chamberlain.
Oh wow!
The NBA for basketball player, and there's a famous picture of Arnold in between him and Andre the Giant. Because Andre was in Destroyer as well.
Mm-hmm.
And Arnold, who, in fairness, is not as tall as a lot of his films have made out, famously, if everyone's aware.
How big was he?
But he's still not a small man, and yet you have these 2 who were like twice his mass easily.
Oh wow!
There's this famous story of when they were shooting Destroyer. Arnold tried to pay the bill at one of the bars they were in. And Andre, who famously had an ability to drink alcohol that you read the stories and it's kind of terrifying, just because of how big he is. His frame could just absorb it.
Yeah.
And by all accounts, he found out Arnold was trying to pay the bill, got so angry, he picked Arnold up and put him on a shelf until he said he wouldn't try again.
You see, that's when you know you've got problems. Bless him. Oh, by the way, our big henchman is Ben Davidson. And Ben Davidson was a professional football player. And the reason that popped up is because he was the one person who was slightly out of the clique. So you're right, the other guys were like Arnie training partners and Arnie buddies. But Ben Davidson was the one guy who kind of wasn't. And he was lovely, like everyone else. He's a lovely, gentle giant, and you find that a lot of these guys in real life were just sweethearts.
Yeah.
But they were certainly not short on size. And of course, at the time, these are, I think, really good costumes. The problem is, like, since then you've had, well, put it this way: when I watched this, I was very much aware of the life of Brian for all of the white cultists. Yeah. And of course, these guys just look like kind of mid-80s WWE wrestlers. I mean, they look good, but again, I think it's the downside of the genre just being done to bits, It's like, at the time, this was brand new. People were like completely taken with this. But of course, when you watch it now, there's so many other people that borrowed from this.
Yeah, it's almost gone beyond. It's gone beyond parody. That's the kicker. And it's a shame, because this is one of the films that deserves to be experienced fresh, but you just can't nowadays, because it inspired so much, and like you say, it's been parodied to death. And there are things, you'd probably maybe make the the cultist crowd a little less, shall we say, monochrome
Yeah.
nowadays. But it's
Oh,
still an
yes.
incredible
Sorry, I see
accomplishment.
what you mean. Sorry.
Yeah.
God, it took a while. Wow, Adam's really on form today, picking up all the stuff. But yeah, I see what you mean.
Great costumes, though.
I think a
Really
lot.
great
I think
costumes.
I know they had as well a big thing about snakes in this film, in the fact that the snake master, like, insisted that all of the cast had a snake. The snake spent time on them, and the snake got used to them. And the whole deal was that you could then, if you needed to act with the snake would be fine on camera and wouldn't have a problem. And I know I'm kind of doing a well, actually moment, but James L. Jones, who at this point, of course, like, it had very much gotten out that he was the voice of Darth Vader. He was doing wonders on stage. He was obviously doing his dramatic roles. He absolutely ate this up. It was great. But he said one of the funniest things was because he'd also been an Army Ranger. One of their tests, and this, by the way, is something that could have come out of The Gentleman, because they did exactly the same thing. Sorry, not The Gentleman. The British spy movie with you'll see what I mean in a sec. So anyway, he said as a ranger, they had this thing where they had to befriend a snake, I think a wild snake, earn its trust, sleep with it, look after it through this whole long expedition, and then at the end of it, they had to cut it up and eat it. And I'm trying to remember which franchise it is with the British spies and where they all get the nice suits.
Oh,
It's not Gentleman. It's not
Kingsman.
Thank you,
Where they have
Kingsman.
the dog.
Yeah, it's the dog. It's very much the dog. And I was like, oh, they've taken it from that, which they both clearly took it from the Rangers test, where you have to befriend something and then kill it to show your commitment to the cause. And I just thought, yeah, this was a great idea. So James L. Jones had no problem befriending the snake, but he had no bones about if the snake turned nasty, he would, bash its head out. And he takes so much joy in his role here. He's just
he's just
loving
eating
it.
it up.
So here's a question for you: Is this a better performance? So you're taking the material, and does he do a better performance of it than Frank Langella does in He-Man?
Oh, that's a good question. First off, you're talking about two titans of the stage, frankly. Frank Langella and James L. Jones are two of those actors who are immediately recognizable whenever they show up. They both have that sort of presence. It's a tough one because I do have a soft spot for Langella's Skeletor.
Yeah.
He's under a lot of makeup, but man, does he devours that film.
Oh, he does.
He leaves everyone else in that movie scrambling to catch up, frankly. But James L. Jones as False Doom, man, it's great because for a lot of people, this is their first time seeing James L. Jones. One, in the flesh, really.
Yep.
And two, delivering a proper villain that's got far more going on, because his voice work as Vader is great, but it takes 3 films for you to get the layers for that character. This is one film, not a lot of scenes of False Doom, in fairness.
Nope.
There's really only 3 major scenes with him in.
Yep.
And this is his big one in the middle, really, where he gets to talk at length. And he just kills it, man, because you can see what False Doom is living his best life. He's got his cult, he's got control, he thinks he's worked out the riddle, so he knows what true power is, and he don't give 2 craps about this barbarian who's shown up. He's just pissed that he's stolen from him.
Yeah. I don't know if he took the role because of his kids. I know Max von Sydow did because one of his kids was into the comics. And
Okay.
I think this is... It's funny because, well, Alec Guinness... I know Alec Guinness wasn't the first old Hollywood thesp playing cameo that he dies, and, you know, the sort of stuff that Anthony Hopkins has made a career out of in the last 10, 15 years, and to a lesser extent Michael Caine. But it definitely set a trend, and there's also this trend as well of big stars doing these kind of genre films, everything from this to Raul Julia doing, you know, Street Fighter. People doing it because they want a role for their kids or for their grandkids.
Absolutely.
They want a role that other people can enjoy them in. I'm trying to think. I'm sure there were some other ones, some really, really big ones, like guys who starred in action and horror films doing something really cheesy. I think like some of the people involved in Potter probably jumped in onto those projects because, again, they want to do it for the kids.
Yeah, I mean, for all, Potter's become a troublesome subject.
Yes.
We won't go into it because that's a whole other discussion. We'll be here for years. But almost every adult actor in those films has said, yeah, they were offered generous salaries for the role, but also they were coming from careers with a lot of their films, their families hadn't been able to watch because some of them have played some right bastards over the years. So to do something that their grandkids especially could watch them in, it's easy. You can dismiss that as a reason, but not being funny. These are people with a craft, and they want their families to experience it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, you imagine Gary Oldman's kids. You know, up to a certain age, they're like, "So what do you do, Dad?" And it's like, "Well, there was this film called There's this film called Leon. I can't really tell you. There was this film called True Romance. I can't really tell you. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he's even said. I think when he was doing Potter, part of the reason he took Potter was I can't remember if he had divorced or his partner passed away, but he was basically single parenting his kids.
Yeah.
And the Potter films gave him the chance, for once he was in, gave him the chance to basically live in the UK with his kids, and they could still go to school and he could still be there for them.
Oh, nice.
And a lot of other roles, he couldn't have done that. So it was the right films at the right time sort of thing.
Yeah.
With the sort of salary accompanying it that was even better, frankly.
Mm.
So,
you know, it's weird. It takes the mention of someone like Gary Oldman to bring me back to something vaguely Warhammer. And I've got to ask you, because that is a danger that we won't touch on anything remotely Warhammer. But
yeah,
in terms of Warhammer and both sides, I get that you could say that the Catachans have a lot of the Rambo Predator aesthetic. I mean, that's not exactly a hidden thing. That's a well-known thing.
Yeah.
But in terms of like the kind of ego, the self-assuredness, I mean, I see a lot of, funnily enough, The Rock's Black Adam in Conan. But where Black Adam is, there's more brazen ego and almost more like childish ego as well. Where Conan's is more like a drive to just do what he wants to do. But were there any characters that were wholesale copies of Conan in like the old world or any other form of Warhammer fantasy? Is there an element as well of the fantasy side that you could look to Conan and go, yeah, they clearly stole from that or borrowed heavily?
It's an interesting one because, in fairness to them, GW have always try not to be too blatant when they can, if it's possible. If they can make it their own thing, they will do. Now, Conan, Barbarians I've been part of fantasy since its early days, but they've evolved over years. So very quickly they became much more the Chaos Marauders, who had a bit more of the savage to them rather than the Barbarian, which is two very different things. The closest we've probably had, so I mentioned Hero Quest. The Barbarian hero in that is clearly inspired by how people picture Conan from the comic books and this film.
Yeah.
Bare-chested, furry loincloth, big broadsword, black hair with a slight bowlish fringe at the front, but long in the back. And that's the classic Barbarian aesthetic for a lot of people. You say Barbarian, that's what they think. Now, there have been miniatures based on that. There was, the one from Hero Quest. Over the years, GW have done tributes. So, a few years back when they redid the Marauders as the Dark Oath Savages in Age of Sigmar, you can actually build a model from that who is very clearly Conan the Barbarian.
Right.
And the pose looks like one of the poses you'd see Arnold or the comic book character in on a cover. He's got the same hair. It fits. Other model makers have done their own takes. If you want to find a Barbarian, like I said before, most sculptors at some point they've done a Conan. In fact, there's at least one person I know who's done a full set of files based on this film.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. All the characters. And a lot of the terrain as well, a lot of bits of scenery, which is kind of impressive, to be fair. In terms of character, now I'd probably say the closest Games Workshop have done would be Gotrek Gurneson.
Okay.
For those not to know, he's a Dwarven Slayer. He's one of the oldest published characters in Games Workshop fiction. There have been short stories based on him since the late 80s, early 90s, written by Bill King initially. He's been written consistently since then. And excuse me, I'm being distracted by some wonderful work by Arnold there, because that is a heavy-ass sword to swing that lightly. But Gotrek he's very much a character who shows up in places and is a disruptor. And that tends to be what Conan is in a lot of his stories. He's a disruptive element. Think Yojimbo, or the man with no name in A Fistful of Dollars.
Yeah.
The outsider who appears and throws everything out of whack and normally messes with the big fish of that particular pond. Or Gracie Thankful, as the case may be.
Nice.
I mean, they've done more tributes. I mean, there's at least one Space Wolf head that's very Conan coded. Right. I've actually tended not to use it that often, to be fair, because it's very square jawed, but it has that same haircut.
Yep.
It's a good head. It's a good one to use, but it's tricky fun to find the right place to use it. I mean, ultimately, Conan probably is. He probably does fit how a Space Marine would. That self-assuredness, that confidence, that disdain for others, because you think or know you're better in some way. It's actually thinking about it, Space Marines do have a lot of Conan in their DNA.
Would there be any Catachans as well that would?
I mean, the Catachans is a weird one because they are very much Rambo and Predator coded. That's Rambo, Predator, Vietnam War movie. That's their whole DNA, or just Planet Australia, for want of a better word.
Yeah.
But the weird thing is, the Catachans haven't. they've had a bit more character in recent years because there've been a couple of novels. But prior to that, there's only really been 3 characters of note for them. There was a colonel who was actually a bit of an oddity for a Catachan, given he was quite wiry and lean. Whereas they're generally quite big and chunky because high gravity planet, because that's how that works apparently.
Yep.
But otherwise, you've got Gunnery Sergeant Harker, who lugs around his own heavy bolter and breaks Tyranid necks with his biceps.
As you do.
Yeah. Or there's Colonel Iron Hand Strachan, the man who had half his torso bitten away before he killed the thing that did the biting. He's literally got half his torso and one arm are all bionics. In game terms, he can punch out a Space Marine.
Nice.
He's a walking stereotype. It's wonderful. But they don't really... I'll say, there's been 2 books recently, Death Worlder and Catachan Devil. I've yet to read both. I have both. I just haven't got around to reading them yet.
Okay.
If I remember right, Death Worlder is by... Oh, who's Death Worlder by? I can't remember.
I can always have
Victoria Hayward.
Okay.
And I know that Friend of the Fluff Swanee adores that book because it follows a squad of jungle fighters on a planet that's fallen to the Tyranids. They're not defending it. It's fallen, and they're on the last mission before ships flee, basically. Okay. And that does have a lot of personality in it, but I can't speak for if any of them have a bit of Conan to their DNA. The jungle fighters, as a rule, they are a novelty in the setting because their one export is their manpower.
Yeah.
That is Catachan's major export because that's how they get the material they need to survive. Everything that their settlements need to keep going, because Catachan is described as the most deadly death world in the galaxy.
Yeah, it's like they can't even clear back the jungle long enough to do anything. It's almost like they're battling, like every element of the planet is against them.
Yeah, you can clear the terrain around the fort, the settlement, for a day, and it's growing, but it's starting to come back the very next day. It's a wonder anyone lives there, but there's enough people to export multiple regiments of guardsmen every year, and they get back everything the settlements need to keep on going.
Yep.
It's a borderline comically over the top setting just for one particular regiment of one army. But they kind of sell it because the way they depict the jungle fighters is that they're very hardy. They kind of give off the appearance of not caring about NF, being very laissez-faire about death. And they kind of are because they've all lived with it since they were born. More than any other humans in the setting, probably. It's just what life's like for them. And that's kind of interesting. Especially because, like I say, 40k is hilariously lethal as these things go. I mean, almost every Space Marine chapter, if they have a homeworld, more often than not, it's a death world. It's rare for it not to be. So, and in fact, Space Marines they're told not to recruit from Catachan because the jungle fighters are far too important. Which is just okay, yeah.
Do they actually have? They must have off-world as well. Off-world, like squads, and maybe even sort of secondary areas where other death worlds where maybe they go to, because you're never going to have enough jungle fighters, and you don't want to bleed the planet dry.
Yeah.
So I just always imagine it's kind of like Krieg as well. Like Krieg has obviously its dubious methods of reproduction. I can understand why they would then have enough of those troops to constantly pump them out whenever they need 20,000 people to just die in a single day. But Katajan, like I do wonder if, it's one of those things. Sorry, my God, that's getting off topic even for us. That's really weird. But okay, here's another weird thing then. Something to start you off, because that's all I'm doing at the moment now. I'm just starting you off on something. So I'm going to start you off with something really good now.
Go on.
This film, Predator, Apocalypse Now. It's like, and maybe even a little bit of Platoon, but just a little bit. This film, it almost feels like it is inspired by and directly led towards, like almost a sort of interconnected family of other films. There's a lot of nods here to stuff that you would then see in Predator, especially with the end, especially with some of the stuff that they set up in there. But also you've got this Colonel Kurt's Apocalypse Now. You're going to kill the bad guy, and it's almost like killing the bad guy is kind of the finale, but it's not, but it is. What do you think about the sort of connection to other films?
That's interesting, because I mean, am I right? Did Oliver Stone have something to do with Apocalypse Now? I'm trying to remember. I don't think with Apocalypse, no. No, he was certainly involved with Platoon.
Oh, of course, yeah.
It's interesting because American cinema takes an odd turn in the 80s. Well, it kind of starts in the 70s, to be fair.
Yeah.
As Vietnam goes downhill. Because that whole conflict creates a wound on the American psyche that is still played out today, to be honest.
In many ways, yeah.
And it gets played off in a sense of, I don't want to say envy, but disillusionment.
Yep.
So you do get a lot of films where the hero ends up going after an authority figure of some sort who's been either they've done something to the hero at an earlier date, or they've been revealed to have gone off the map big style. So it's not an uncommon thing to see and it's not just in a single genre, it's across multiple types of film. This is such a good sequence, though. The body paint the three of them wear is very nicely done.
Yeah. It's so distinctive as well. I mean, it's great because it's meant to throw out, the silhouette in shadows. It's meant to throw you off. But he does as well. Conan really sells it. Well, Arnie really sells it. The intimidation. And then, in this fight, which is, let's face it, a couple of really big guys throwing heavy weapons at each other and trying not to completely destroy the camera. And they do a lot. They do get across how fast they are. And I think that was one of the big things, is because you don't want somebody to be slow and weak or slow and cumbersome. They have to be fast. Funnily enough, like a Space Marine, they always say Space Marines are blindingly fast for their size. And this, you get across with the action. You get across they're fast, they're vicious, they're powerful, and yet they're also really big guys, which is
It's a hard one to get because, like I said, it's so tempting just to think of a big guys being slow.
Yeah. Well, it's also as well slow and dim-witted. That was the other thing that unfortunately sort of Conan really put into all these exploitation films, is that the big guy, because they'd hired for someone so big, they often, when they opened their mouths, it actually came out very much like the sort of Arnie sort of dialect of, yeah, I big guy, yeah, good. It's like, no. If Conan is that clever as a kind of, as a strategist,
yeah,
they should really show it off.
It's an example of filmmakers missing the point of the character they're trying to emulate.
Yep.
And it's frustrating, because in this film Conan is possibly naive at points, but he's very rarely he's naive, and sometimes he acts a little foolish, but he's never stupid.
Yep.
He's normally very cunning and crafty about things. In fact, he feels human. He's more layered than a lot of the barbarian archetype gets played with. And that's not just in film and TV. It happens in other media as well, in comics and in literature. It's easy to write for barbarian as being a dimwit, but it's more fun when they're not.
Yeah, it's more when it's a really nice way of subverting expectations, that you have this guy who's a canny mind.
I mean, one of the things Marvel did when they got the rights back to Conan in, I think, 2019 it was? 2018?
Yeah.
They brought him back into the Marvel Universe proper. They introduced him back in an Avengers book.
Yeah.
And they brought him not just into the Marvel Universe, into the Marvel present. He spent about 3 years jumping around present day Marvel Earth. He interacted with Doctor Doom, Doctor Strange, Magic from the X-Men. He had his own team of Avengers at one point. He took up residence in the Hellfire Club's New York pad. He took it over. He was there for the King in Black story, when the King of the Symbionts came to New York. He was a big deal. They made him a part of the setting proper. And they wrote him as a proper, yes, as a barbarian, but also someone very canny. He matched wits with Doctor Doom.
That's impressive.
Yeah, one of the best scenes of that era is Doom sharing a meal with Conan, and Conan basically saying, "Why aren't you eating?" And Doom saying, "I don't remove my mask for anyone." And Conan's response, "Is it keeping you alive?" And like, "No, I am burned." And then Conan's response is, the vanity. And Doom takes his mask off. I struggle to think of characters that Doom does that for.
Where they just have like this clear intelligence, but also as well they don't. I suppose he doesn't react very well to a lot of the games that people play, especially supervillains. Maybe as well, because he's not. He was in Marvel stuff, but he wasn't in there for an extended, like a very long period of time. It's like he sort of dropped out again.
They only had rights for about 4 or 5 years. The Conan rights are a bit odd.
Okay.
Coupled, because currently the comic book rights have gone to Titan.
Yep.
But the writer currently who's written most of the stuff is Jim Zub, who brought Conan into the Avengers books and wrote most of his stuff.
Okay.
With Marvel, because he's a big fan of Conan. And he's been making a real push to try and bring more of Howard's characters to a broader audience. So he's done there was one story arc where he actually had all of Howard's characters interacting together.
Oh.
Which was kind of unprecedented. It was a bit of a head trip, but it was, for me as someone who wasn't aware of all these characters, or as many of them, it was kind of nice to read it, because they made a point of trying to put everyone in their context in the back. So there's always some wonderful background stuff they fit into these books.
Yeah.
And in fairness, they did the same thing in a lot of the Marvel stuff. They made a point of trying to explain context for when things took place and what they were adapting, or what they were using to jump off of to write a story. So I've always appreciated that, to be fair.
I like that this film has something that a lot of standard sorcery films and sci-fi films, and even if you take, the standard structure of a movie as well, is that Conan and his buddies kind of got one over on the bad guy. Yes, the bad guys responded as they were getting away, but they kind of did what they set out to do originally. It's this action that kind of makes it personal, and now they decide to sort of, well, I think at this point they know they're coming anyway, so they set a trap. But it's weird. The structure doesn't follow the standard. Like you would almost expect. You would expect like the sacrifice of a heroic supporting character, maybe towards the end, or if it was earlier, that there wouldn't be a comeback. That would be it. There's lots of things that aren't standard for this film. And even the way as well that the fight scenes develop, it's almost like the previous fight scene felt like it would have been the finale in any other film. And what we see here is kind of the build-up to that. Also, as well, as we're talking as well, we're seeing Arnie in the thoughtful pose, which is something that has become really linked to Conan, hasn't it, over the years, because of like the final scene and just the whole discussion of the burden of being a king and stuff like that. There you go. By the way, that's the first thing I want Prince William to do when he ascends to the throne. I want someone to film a little speech with him where he's just got his head on his hands and he's just like contemplating life. Obviously, his Windsor accent would probably do a worse job of mangling the script than Arnie's accent in this film, but it would be nice to see. But
that's an amusing image.
We're going. This is where when I was rewatching this, just the Predator vibe just started to build. But also, just before that, we have a scene in which Arnie is talking as Conan, and it's only a small bit, but it's almost like his accent is dialed down, and he does a really, really good job, and I believe what he's saying in this moment as the character. And I think after this, if I then look to some of the other stuff, I think, well, no, Arnie had some chops as an actor, and it was obvious in this. And I think casting directors came away, especially with scenes like this, going, he can actually, he's not great, but he will more than pass, and he is a lot better than other action-bound heroes. And that was the thing. That's why he was such a big deal, because he had the body and the presence of the action star, but he was also intelligent enough to use it well and to do a little bit of acting when he had to.
Absolutely. And I said it before, people make the mistake of thinking Arnold, underestimating him.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But he was a millionaire before he went into acting. And not even from his bodybuilding, from the roof tiling business he and some of his buddies were running in California. They'd made bank, and he chose to pivot into acting, and he worked at it so much so that he knew that his accent was kind of part of his selling point.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he said he actually started to worry about losing the accent, so he he had a dialect coach to help him keep it. Which is kind of bonkers to realise, to think about.
Someone walking in and going, I'm responsible for heightening Arnie's accent. And Arnie will come up to you and go, okay, I'll read out the first line. Get down. It's like, no, Arnold, it needs to be more sort of, get down, get down. Get down. No, Arnie, you need to be more Schwarzenegger. Get down. There we go. That's good. Well done. But there's
the fact that his accent's actually to Austrians, it's a hick accent, which is.
Oh, what? It's like an American doing a false cowboy accent.
Well, no, it's like.
Or do you mean it's like? Oh, it's a country accent.
Yeah. Because where he grew up in Austria was basically for backwards, effectively.
Okay.
So in Austria and Germany, his films kind of have tended to struggle a little bit in places because of his accent, ironically enough. Then he doesn't do any of his own dubbing, I believe, in the German or Austrian versions. They get someone else to do it.
I'm not surprised. I mean, could you imagine like any hero in UK films done with a Dorset accent?
I mean, that was one of the things about Solomon Kane that always made me laugh. That they did have Mateboy doing the full Cornish accent, which Cornish accent is the traditional pirate accent.
Yep.
But that's all it is. There was one actor who played Long John Silver who used the Cornish accent he used on stage. And that's become the de rigueur pirate accent to anyone who watches a pirate movie.
Good grief.
It's crazy how things evolve like that.
It's true.
But yeah, this is like I said, this is kind of an outlier because you'd have thought the infiltration scene where they rescued the princess would be the big finale, but
yeah, this would be like the this would be maybe the equivalent of Weathertop in the Fellowship. It is Weathertop, isn't it? Yeah, the first time Aragorn actually fights. So this would be almost them weakening down the bad guys before they had the big finale, but the big finale would still be the infiltration. It is odd, and I see what they're doing, and you can see. I think you can see tactics in this. They're clearly using their local knowledge and tricking them. But it's very convenient that everyone takes their time in riding round and dutifully doesn't trip over the other 1,500 horses. And though apparently there was a lot of feedback at the time. People got really annoyed at the fact that there were clearly spikes on the ground and there were horses going over, even though these were apparently all rubber. And there was a lot of discussion on whether animals were injured in this film, and apparently yes, actors were injured but no animals. But they do take some really hard falls, I have to admit. These horses really worked hard. I mean, just the way as well that they were running at people, but when they go over some of these drops, they are bad.
Yeah, and rubber is not always an indication of something being soft, just that it'll flex. So it's still going to bloody hurt.
No, fair play. Sorry, go on. Sorry, I was going to say,
like you said, this shows some real tactical nuance from Conan and Subotai, because they've basically set up a series of funnels around this site. They've littered it with weapons they can pull out at a moment's notice. And Thoughts of Doom and his boys, they're kind of playing to the arrogance of this army.
Yep.
Not even an army, it's maybe 50 guys at most.
Oh, it's even less than that. It's barely. It's a large hunting squad, but it's nothing big.
No, and it kind of helps play to the stakes because it gets across that, well, this isn't a massive engagement. These this is a setting where the battles might only be a few dozen guys at most, because it's not our world, not yet.
Yep.
This is bless Mako.
He doesn't do bad. He's a little bit encumbered. Bless him. He's doing his best. I've got to say as well, in terms of some of them obviously more agile on their feet than others, but I noticed as well this sequence, because it's daytime as well, and daytime's kind of unforgiving to these types of costumes, but it really played into a bit of the stereotypes of the sort of the Viking and the Barbarian, and it had a lot. I think it had a lot of impact on costumes for these films for years to come.
Yeah. I mean, you've basically got about, at any point, there's like 4 or 5 different eras of armor at play that never would have been side by side.
Yeah.
Oh, I love this moment. Sorry.
No, go on.
It's such a great moment. It doesn't come out of anything from the Conan lore at all, but it's just a great moment for this iteration of the character and Valeria. For their relationship. Because it's another of those hints that there is more to this world than we've seen.
Yep.
That there are some gods out there who are listening to their respective warriors, even if Crom certainly isn't.
It is. I wrote in when I was jotting down little notes for this, and I just wrote "Sister of Battle."
Yeah.
Because it feels like the Saint Celestine.
Saint, yeah.
It just felt a little bit like that, and it was. You're right. It's just a really nice, and it's so quick, so deftly done, and gives that character as well a nice little added send off. Like it's almost like a happy ever after. It's not, because she's dead, but she kind of gets to go, hey, Conan, see, still got you, and then heads off, and it's just lovely, nice and quick, fantastic. Yeah, it's these Viking hats, helmets, they throw me a little bit, just in daytime as well. It's a tough thing to pull it off, especially in bright daylight.
It is. And, I mean, there's a bit of Mongol in there, a bit of Viking.
Yeah.
And it's the stereotype Viking that never really existed as well, so it's doubly...
Yeah, I was going to say, when you see people talk about what Vikings really did look like, and it was obviously far, far different. It's crazy, though. This scene has involved Conan basically beating the bad guy. And he's kind of run away, almost like an "I'll get you next time" gadget thing. It's the sort of thing that you would have, again, at the end of the film. But this would almost appear after the infiltration scene as the baddie getting away with it. But yeah, it's just, it's all, I mean, it's like all slightly out. I can imagine, though, that each one of these little battles and moments could be seen by other people as a small legend in its own right. And it's almost like
absolutely.
These are the stories that make up the legend of Conan. That said, though, if you want to make an impact in terms of sets and just the visual impact of a given shot, this look down on the crowd is incredible.
Yeah.
And this is where I got the Apocalypse Now thing, because when Kurtz is going to kill is it Kurtz? Sheen
No.
is going to go. Oh, that's it. Sheen is going to go and kill Brando's character, who is Colonel Kurtz. You get this slow build up where he's sneaking through, and there's other stuff going on outside, and you have this where there's obviously this huge event, and yet Conan's sneaking in, and it's not like he's going to fight another army of people here. He's not going to like charge through 300 other people and it's going to be another big battle with this just being the last thing. It's far, far more subtle.
I keep forgetting that the princess is an active part in helping Conan here.
Yeah.
I always forget that.
Yeah, because she's been spurned. So she's actually got clarity, which I love because it allows her character to grow. She doesn't also become instant bedbait for Conan. She's just being herself, but she has her own agency.
There's never a hint of that, which
is great.
Would have been a very easy way to take things, but they took the more interesting approach where Conan had a job to do. He's doing it.
Yeah.
Rescue the princess for the king.
Which, funnily enough, it's weird because he rescues her, but then he's also like, look, let's get a 2-in-1. Let's keep the princess with me, and let's kind of, double or nothing. Let's try and get the bad guy. But these shots as well, looking down on the crowd, like some of them, especially the one over Thyrsa's shoulder, I actually get a little bit of vertigo from this.
Yeah.
It's
I can't
so
imagine what
high
must
up.
have been like. That must have been like standing there as well.
Oh, that power. That must be something special.
You got to think this role for an actor like James Earl Jones must have been, for all its trappings as a piece of fantasy hokum, must have been a bit of a gift, to be honest, because you can go broad with this, and he's relishing everything he says.
Well, he's doing the classic. He says about this. I've spoken about it a lot, but a lot of actors have done the same thing as well. If you're playing a bad guy, you have to believe that you're in the right. You have to believe that you are doing the best thing. In your mind, you are the good guy. And even in this final scene, he's being the good guy, but in the worst possible way.
Yeah.
And like, you don't know, like if the audience feels like Conan here. Sorry, I'm struggling over my words again. But because he is providing such a challenging argument to him, you don't quite know if he deserves everything he gets or if he's got some sort of sick point.
Yeah.
One thing
go on. I was just going to say, the Temple of Set that he's leading. I mean, he clearly believes he's gained power from serving this god.
Yeah.
In some way. So, and it doesn't come across as fanaticism. It comes across as sincere belief.
Yeah.
In the power of his god, a god that he can clearly channel in some way. So.
And then you get the consequence of that. I mean, sorry, just as well, we skipped over the fact that Arnie and James Earl, because of the costume and the trust that they developed, Arnie was able to actually land strikes on this guy's neck. Wow. Can you imagine doing that in a film nowadays? Even though they had the support there, they'd worked out.
Yeah.
Arnie was so good with the sword, which obviously people realize is the broken sword. He's redeemed his father. He's done everything he said he would do. But now that he's done that and he has defeated the bad guy, you've then got all of the bad guy's acolytes. And it's almost like they're like, look, who do we follow now? Do we follow you?
But it's not just for... It's the manner in which he defeated Doom.
Yeah.
He did it in the most public way he could.
The most humiliating way as well, to go, look, this is not a god. And what you see is not chaos. And I love this. Again, talk about subverting expectations. If this was made today, by the way, people would have a field day criticizing it because of the subversions. But they're not. They're saying, look, your followers are losing faith. This is how they do it. Your lights go out. That's how you symbolize it. And they don't scream and run away. Maybe a couple of them do. But most of it is just disappointment. There's nothing left. However, at the end of it all, Conan realizes, well, there's still a temple. If I don't get rid of that, then we're just going to have this same thing all over again. And I love how you see him process this. You see him work through it. You see him make the decision. Do I become the next god? Do I become the next king? Or do I try and burn this to the ground?
Yeah. And I'm feeling like a bit of an idiot because I've just realised there is a very clear Conan analogue in GW's Pantheon.
Go on.
And that's Sigmar. Sigmar Haldenhammer. He's kind of not, because he becomes leader of his tribe barely out of his teens.
Yeah. And
founds the empire fairly quickly. But he is effectively, he is the classic barbarian warlord, writ large. The only difference is that his world, the old world wouldn't let you go on the sort of adventures that Conan does. At the time Sigmar lives, it's far too brutal. His tribe are fighting orcs and beastmen and other human tribes. It's a brutal time. And they only forge the empire due to a friendship he makes with the High King of the Dwarves.
Mm.
But that lets him establish the empire out of the other tribes, as well as his. And in the end, he disappears, walks off one day, and he enters the realms of myth to the point where he's deified and is now literally one of the major gods of Age of Sigmar. But he's almost the ultimate expression of where the Conan archetype can go.
Yeah. I like the idea, and this ties into the Crom stuff as well, that we've obviously had a ton of these religious figures. I'll say gods, but they've been viewed as such. But that we've let them expire, we've abandoned them, we've moved on, or they've been obviously ripped apart by Christianity or just turned into something else, like Santa Claus and all that stuff. And I like the fact that Conan offers this alternate version of history where maybe this did happen, maybe this was a religion, maybe this was something special, but maybe he tore it down as well, and so maybe we just forgot about it. And there's a statue in a museum somewhere, or a carving that we think is just something completely different, but was actually for this snake god, and this snake god really existed, but we've just moved on, and everything else is just dust.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that it allows us to believe that this was a potential history.
Absolutely. Yeah. Fantasy as a genre can be fun. There's something to create in your own world, but it's also fun to try and make yours fit in the gaps of our history. And man, that's a hell of an image at the end there.
It is, but it's one of those, it's a teaser. Obviously they cut him saying the dialogue because it just wasn't working.
Yeah.
But it then instills in the reader, right, well, there's going to be another film, or there's going to be another point where we reach that point. And because he's depicted as older, you always thought, well, there was some point Arnie would go back to it. But even though he was even talking about it until like 5-6 years ago, I still don't think they're ever going to do it. And if they do, Arnie would be there in a very different light, because I think he's mostly too old to get away with it now.
Yeah.
Even as a supporting character, he would have to be something quite special.
It would. I mean, there's been talk possibly of, alongside getting his son to play Conan's son, who is who does succeed him as King of Aquilonia.
Yeah.
Conan II, or Con, as he's known for his father, sails away.
It would be nice for them to do it, I think, but I don't know.
I mean, I've always liked how that dialogue ends there, because it just hints that there are other stories. It gives you a hint that this is just one story in a larger tapestry, which is what it is effectively. It's a Conan story amongst many.
Mm-hmm.
So even at the time, even if there hadn't been another Conan film, it still kind of would give someone the impetus to maybe think, oh, well, maybe I should go out and find these books it's based on.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember seeing a Conan comic book. What are they like? And see what more material is out there.
There's so much more material. I mean, there's a staggering amount. I know that. So there's another YouTube shout out, a guy called Exits Explained, and he covers a lot of like franchises which are currently dormant, let's just say, but he will then talk about how much stuff there is out there, and he talked about Conan, and he went through it all, and there is a staggering amount of stuff.
There is.
It's ridiculous.
I own all the stuff Monolith have done for the Conan board game. I've backed all the Kickstarters for it. Because I just loved how everything looked, and getting to experience the setting from that perspective.
Yep.
Gale Force 9 funded a board game last year that's at retail now that's done quite well. Used a lot of artwork from the comics, which again, they've been doing solid numbers.
Yep.
Conan hasn't been out of publication really since like the 90s in comics, because Dark Horse had him for a long time. Marvel got the rights a few years ago, like I said. Those are now with Titan. Because of how the rights work, there's actually an unofficial set of adaptions called under the title The Cimmerian.
Okay.
They're still Conan stories, but they're kind of with the serial numbers filed off to get around. They still got published by a US retailer and collected as such. So
not bad.
It was legal, if not entirely ethical. But Conan still has an audience. And also, we probably should have pointed out, what a soundtrack.
Yeah, it's funny. Again, there's typical stuff. I have to admit, and then this, if you've listened this far, folks, you might realize, or you might be surprised what I'm about to say, because of a few things we actually missed in the intro to this. I might even put in a little added intro saying that we didn't talk about the soundtrack at all. We didn't actually mention a certain artist who did the covers for Conan books that kind of inspired everything. But that's the thing is,
there's so much.
This is the thing with this is that a lot of this is the way the conversation takes us. So this is the basis for a conversation as opposed to something else. So I might stick something in the beginning just where I say, look, we're not discounting the soundtrack, but obviously as we're watching the film and talking to you, we don't have it blaring in our ears. So, it'd be the sort of thing that we would urge you to discover, and it's beautiful stuff. But
I mean, if you've ever stepped into a Games Workshop store in like the last 30 years,
you probably heard some of it. Yeah,
there's good odds at least part of that soundtrack's played at some point.
Yeah. And the other soundtracks as well by the same guy. It's one of those things as well that elevates. It's the reason why this film is a superior Barbarian film, is because in the rip-offs and the knockoffs and the cheap versions, they skimp on soundtrack, they skimp on cinematography,
Yeah.
they skimp on casting, and all of this stuff unfortunately leaves you with a shoddy product at the end of it. Whereas this is really people giving their A game. And you could say, well, Arnie is the weak link here. And it's like, well, he's not a professional, but he's trying damn hard. And
Oh,
he's
absolutely.
giving like 150%. And
I
you
mean,
can tell.
Yeah, I mean, this film, everyone is committed.
Yeah.
No, everyone's bought into what they're doing. That's a very important thing. But a lot of films, the failure is not so much. I mean, we've both seen great films that have everything going for them, but they failed because something just isn't right. And quite often that can just be the people involved are not. They're not gelling with the material, and that can be. It's not just the actors I'm talking about. It could be the director's not clicking with the material. They're directing a film that's not really playing to their strengths. It could be a key member of the cast or several members of the cast just are in the wrong role, and that's not to say that they're not trying. That's a very important thing to say. I don't think anyone tries to make a film badly. All right, that's not entirely true. There are some people I do think try to, but that's a different conversation for another day. Most people, when you go into production, want to do the best you can. And sometimes that can just not pan out because of decisions that are made outside of your control.
Yep.
Such as the budget, meaning that a film has to skimp, or try and ride the coattails of something like Conan, which was based on an established property. Almost every film that followed this is an original production. They are not adapting an existing property, or using an existing property's name. That's not an easy thing to do, and it means that they don't have the depth of material to draw on that the folks who made Conan had the ability to do.
Yep.
And it's why it's why we didn't really have a fantasy film of this, a sword and sorcery film, do anything like the numbers of Conan, honestly, until Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And that's a different sort of fantasy film in its own right. They sit alongside each other, but they're not at all in the same wheelhouse. And probably between them, Willow made a damn good effort, but has its own. It was probably the boldest attempt to do something fresh, with the budget to back it up. Whereas all the other attempts just kind of didn't. So they failed for various reasons. And we say failure, but Beastmaster formed a reasonably successful mini property of its own right.
Oh no, there's a lot of these. There's a lot of these that went on to like 3, 4, 5 films in a series, and they had lore and they built stuff. The problem was, I think, that because there wasn't maybe the rich vein of established lore to mine, they were trying to sort of make up the sequels on the spot, which is, funnily enough, why a lot of Hollywood sequels these days are suffering, is that they're not drawing from a well of information, or they're not going, well, for a second or third film, let's imagine that there is a lore. What would be the lore for the first film? Right, expand that, then that can be the basis for the second. They're just going, well, how do we make it bigger, faster, more? And that's when you end up with a film contradicting itself, or characters making no sense, or the style like dramatically changing, because it's not really connected to a lore, even though it's trying to make you think it is. That's one of the things. I used to have a friend who was always dreaming up ideas for films, but his idea would be that he would never have the established setting before he started pitching it to me. he would always sort of almost add it in on the spot. So there's a guy, and he has three eyes, Well, in this world, everyone has three eyes. Anyway, so he's moving around, and he has a problem because he's blind. Oh, sorry, I didn't mention, but in this world, everyone has three eyes, but every so often there's a solar eclipse. It's like, no, you don't do that. You say, this is the world. 50 years ago, this has happened, and this is how people live, and this is their situation. Right, I've established that. Here is our story. And then you start talking about the actual character. I think it feels like, because they had the Conan property to go with, yes, this is not the most authentic by any stretch of the imagination Conan translation, even though a lot of people obviously associate Conan with this now.
Yeah.
But because they had that rich vein of lore to draw from, it means that when they do take other stuff and add it in, it all feels like it's part of the same universe, which it technically is. You had the villain from one film. I think it was from his father's adventures. You had Crom. Yeah, Crom was from, I think, defeated by the first hero that the guy came up with, not Conan, but then retconned to be Conan's father. Red Sonja, as you mentioned as well, is taken from a different line in a different medium by different people. And because it's been done to kind of fit into that world, it ends up, unsurprisingly, fitting into that world. It's weird. It's a great... The Conan franchise is a great way of how you can slot new stuff into an IP if you get it right. If you get it wrong, or if you don't commit, it falls apart just like anything else.
Absolutely, 100% that.
Sorry, that was a long one for me.
No, that was good. That got to the heart of it, honestly.
So I think we're done. I don't know about you.
I think we are.
This is going to be a very odd Fluffenbusters because because I don't think we've ever just, like, people will know as well. They've listened to a couple of these. They know we have conversations, and the film is in the background. This is the first one where I think we started this. We barely put an intro to this, and again, I might have to tweak around with that, but it's the first one where I've ever actively gone, the film is playing, but I'm more interested in what you have to say. And I drag it back to look at the film a couple of times, and I know we've not covered a lot of the film, but it's definitely one of the more satisfying, I think, commentaries, mostly down to some of the stuff that you brought up about the mythos, about the approach to character, about the way that some of this stuff is portrayed. So thank you so much for this. I've really enjoyed this.
No worries. I'm glad I didn't just bore you to tears, because I'm painfully aware I can go off on one sometimes. So.
This is we might even just we might add a new title. Actually, it's Fluffenbusters. D just goes off on one.
Yeah.
And to people watching as well, they might notice that our YouTube video background for this looks decidedly ropey. Think of this as a work in progress. So you saw the last one. If you did, well done. This one is slightly better. Hopefully in 1 or 2 films time we should get something a little bit more pro looking. Then all we need to do is start doing the 8-hour film trilogy sessions where we watch the trilogy in one go, and that's when we really kick into gear.
Don't you go threatening me with a good time, sir. I'm like Luis from the Ant-Man movies. You put the coin in, you've got to let it run. Yeah,
it's true. It's true. Anyway, where can we find you, Mr. D?
Oh, I am all over the socials as David Kelly. You'll either find this particular image or a picture of Cup, because I'm not averse to sharing my face, but I don't think anyone should have that inflicted on them. I contribute occasionally to UKAnime.net. As of recording, I've just had a review put up last week for the first Dan Da Dan movie, Evil Eye, that had a limited release.
And made the American top 10.
Oh, I didn't realise that. It was quite good fun. Treated myself to the ultra lux seats at the local View.
Good.
which was an experience. Better than the 4DX shown of Mission Impossible I went to, which damn near shattered my spine again. Otherwise, I am a mod for our Discord over at Fluff and Hammer. I host our monthly watch along, which is something I thoroughly enjoy doing.
I believe you've got the perfect pairing up next.
Oh yes, it's a combo.
What's the first film? So the first film is
Asterix and Obelix, Mansion of the Gods.
okay. So naturally, we're looking at something. Then the follow-up, the second film, needs to be something that fits perfectly with that tone, with that subject matter. I know you put a lot of effort into it. I'm expecting the perfect match for Asterix and Obelisk. Sorry. Is it Asterix and Obelisk? Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yeah. No, we've got Kurt Russell's Soldier.
Oh, there we go. Perfect.
This is for pitfalls of when you pick your movies from a 100 film list and get people to roll 2 D100s randomly.
I think it's brilliant. I think only one of these has Sean Pertwee in it, so
True. Only one of them can tentatively claim to be a set of Sim Universe's Blade Runner.
it is
ambitious
true.
of it, to be honest, but
Yeah, that's a good point. Bear with me.
and just have to. Oh,
Yeah, sorry, I couldn't mute in time. Bear with me 2 seconds whilst I cough my guts up.
no worries.
You'll just have to cover for me for 2 seconds.
Whilst Mr. White expunges everything from his system. So if you're not a part for Fluff and Hammer, we're on Facebook still with our own group.
Yep.
Please join us.
Okay.
We're a friendly bunch. We don't bite.
You can. Oh, I think really you can only find me on the Fluff and Hammer now. I'm off most media now, but I've done at the time of recording, I've done a small audiobook. It's a re-recording of a previous Caiaphas Cain story. That will hopefully go up soon, and then I'm working on another one at present.
Oh, excellent.
And hopefully doing a couple of other extra bits as well for the channel if I can. And that's it. And I'm working on some photography stuff. But if you're really interested, you can find me on Instagram under AD8MWhite.
Coolio. And I think, what did we have line? You said you wanted to do Massive Universe next, wasn't it?
Yes.
I think that pairs wonderfully with this.
Well, it does as well because of a shared history, and that was the fact that the company in charge, Mattel, I believe it was, had bought in as a sponsor or advertiser, or they just got the rights to do the toy line for Conan.
Yeah, they wanted to do a Conan toy line tying in, and
thinking it was going to be a PG film. Now, anyone who's around in the late 80s, early 90s knows that just because your film isn't PG doesn't stop you from doing a toy line on it. However, back then, it really was an issue. So Mattel took a very unique way of solving their issue. But we'll talk about that more when we do Masters of the Universe. And I say we will. I will be talking about it. Dee will be going on about Frank Langella.
I mean, either Frank or Dolph, to be honest, because
it's true. Or Megan? Is it Megan?
Meg Foster.
Meg Foster.
That's equally possible.
Or Courtney.
Yeah.
Or Strickland, whatever his name is.
Oh, that's such a bizarre film, though. It really is. I saw it at the cinema, weirdly.
Okay, great. Right. Okay. We'll do that for next time.
There may be another show airing before that, though, if you're listening to this, because I know you're not available in the daytime, so we should have a recording this week. Myself,
yep,
at least Mr. Gruff,
yep,
and possibly if the Decade one is free, we might have a little. I might have found some lurkers in the lobby to assist me in nattering about Event Horizon.
Oh, fantastic.
Which it was supposed to do it last week and this week just gone, but things got on top of us.
Yep.
So, new start. This should be a fun one to have a yammer on.
Oh, fantastic. Look forward to that.
Yeah. But on that note, folks, thank you very much for listening. Thank you as ever, Mr. White, for agreeing to do these. It's always a pleasure.
It's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah. And see you next time, folks. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.